Before starting the lesson, make sure you have this handout in front of you so you can follow along. We're starting our section on trigonometry, and to start off, we're going to look at the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem is a rule that works for every right triangle. So this only works if there is a right angle in the triangle. If you have a different triangle with no right angle, this won't work. And a lot of people try to make it work, but it only works if there's a right angle in your triangle. You probably remember the Pythagorean theorem. If not, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a, b, and c are the side lengths of the triangle. Now, it's important for the placement of this. This is the hypotenuse, the longest side. It's directly across from the right angle. That hypotenuse is what we label as C in the Pythagorean theorem. So it's very important that whatever you have labeled as the hypotenuse gets put in the hypotenuse spot of the Pythagorean theorem. Now, A, B, and C, those are just labels. You can label a triangle however you want. You might even have actual numbers in your triangle as their lengths. So the placement is what's important. Don't get bogged down in whether it's an A or a B labeled. It could be an X or a Y. As long as you're putting this hypotenuse in the hypotenuse spot, it doesn't matter where the other two sides go. You can flip them around. It doesn't matter. The important placement is the hypotenuse. It'll make more sense when we do some examples. Okay, so here's a triangle. Determine the length of the unknown side. Well, my triangle has a right angle. I know this side. I know this side. I don't know this side. So let's call this side X. Now, X is my hypotenuse. So when I write my Pythagorean theorem, and I'll just go back up so you can see it. Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C is the hypotenuse. Okay, so my hypotenuse is X. That goes in the hypotenuse spot. The 8 and the 12 just go wherever A and B are. The order doesn't really matter for those. As long as you're putting X in the hypotenuse spot, you're going to have the correct equation. So we'll end up with 8 squared plus 12 squared equals X squared. And my goal is to figure out the length of the unknown side. So I want to solve for X. Now I just have to do the math. So 8 squared is 64. 12 squared is 144. So 64 plus 144 is 208. So 208 equals X squared. A lot of people are going to stop at this point and say, oh, I got the answer. The side length is 208 meters. But that's not right, because this is X squared, not X. So to find X, we need to do the opposite of squaring, which is the square root. So we have to do the square root of 208, which gives us approximately 14.4. So the side length is about 14.4 meters. And I have one more example for you. We're still looking at a right triangle. We know two sides, and we want to know the length of the third side. So this is my unknown side. We'll call it X. And I want to determine the length of X. So I'm going to use my Pythagorean theorem, but watch out. This is not the hypotenuse. A lot of people are going to look at a question like this, and they're going to write 8 squared plus 15 squared equals X squared. That is not right, because X is not the hypotenuse. This is the hypotenuse. So the correct way to write the Pythagorean theorem for this is X squared plus 8 squared equals 15 squared. You have to make sure the hypotenuse is in the right spot in your equation. Once you have it in the right spot, now we can just solve it like before. So why don't you just pause the video and try to see if you can figure out what x is. And then, when you're done, check back here to see how you did. Eight squared is 64, 15 squared is 225. To get x squared by itself, I have to move this over. So hopefully you remembered when you cross the equal sign, you have to do the opposite operation. So I have to subtract 64 from 225. So that gives me x squared equals 161. To find x, I have to do the square root of that, which gives me an answer of approximately 12.7 feet. So the Pythagorean theorem only works when your triangle has a right angle in it, and you have to remember to put the hypotenuse in the correct spot. I can't stress that enough. So if you had any questions about this, maybe if you had questions about the algebra, rearranging the equation here, let me know. I'll do my best to help you. Otherwise, move on to the practice questions.